Welcome to the strongteams.com podcast, where we help leaders build strong teams built on empathy, understanding, and trust, where every team member feels valued and contributes at the highest level possible. I'm Steve NeSmith.
And I'm Rodney Cox. So, Steve, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, today's podcast is a bonus episode, Rodney. We're going to talk about a new product we just released at the annual conference in North Carolina last week.
Wow, what a beautiful place we were at. The Cove and Black Mountain Billy Graham Evangelical Association. I said, what a beautiful place. Trees were in turn. The facilities were amazing. The people were amazing. Steve, was that the first time you'd been there, Steve?
It was. I'll tell you, I've been in that part of Western North Carolina more times than I can remember, Rodney. I've been there in the summers and the falls. I've seen the colors on the trees, but I have never seen color on the Blue Ridge Mountains like I saw it last week in mid-October there at the Cove. And you're right about the Cove facility itself. I felt like it was, something Disney had built. They were just the staff was so well trained and so courteous. The facilities were beautiful, and the landscape in the Blue Ridge Mountains there in the Asheville, North Carolina area was fantastic.
The Blue Ridge Parkway runs right through there as well. And there's like 6 entrances in to the parkway right in this 20-mile corridor, which is kind of unheard of. And, most of the time you get on your parkway and it warns you next service is 50 miles or next exit 50 miles, So I'm sure a few of our folks actually extended their stay and spent some time on the Blue Ridge. The trees were absolutely at their peak this last week. What a beautiful time. And, we have scheduled again to be at the Cove next year for our annual conference in October. And we're thinking about doing something in the spring. So we'll keep you posted on that. So, Steve, when we started our time together, we mentioned 3 words: empathy, understanding, and trust. And so what does the word empathy really mean? It means the ability for us to see through someone else's lens. And if I can take the time to actually see through your lens, Steve, it actually can afford me something that I don't have. One of the beautiful things about our working relationship is we're so different. You have a very different temperament than I do. You solve problems different than I do. You process information different than I do. You manage change different than I do. And you deal with risk and the rules different than I do. And it's a healthy balance and our ability to empathize with each other that actually affords us something that neither one of us have. See, what you have, I don't have. And what I have, you don't have. And when those 2 things come together, we have more. So empathy is at the core of this starter pack. We created the starter pack to be able to transfer those principles from the boardroom all the way down to the break room, right? Or the boardroom all the way down to the basement of any organization. And at the core of that is truly understanding our differences, the ability to empathize. That second word, understanding, Steve, let's talk about that a minute. Define that for our listeners.
Sure. Well, understanding it, you need that empathy to understand each other. Understanding denotes that mutual respect for others on your team, and you have to have it, just like you have to have empathy. And I feel like understanding kind of bridges the gap between empathy and trust. And I know that anytime I have built a strong team, I can always look back on that team, and hopefully the team members can too, and say that we really understood each other. And so that when we went into a stressful season, we stayed unified. We stayed resilient. And it was because we understood each other. We had a mutual respect, a healthy respect all the way around the team, not just between the leader and 1 or 2 team members, but across the board. And so with that understanding then comes trust. And trust, I don't think you'd find anybody that would disagree with you that you don't need trust on a strong team. Would you, Rodney?
Trust is hard to build, but it's really easy to lose. And so trust is really key on any team. And I think that a lot of teams are built just on knowledge. Like people will take an assessment or they'll take some type of inventory, and they'll basically just try and build trust on knowledge. But you can't build trust on knowledge. You have to build trust through understanding. And understanding only comes when we can find empathy, when we can actually empathize with one another. And being a Christ-centered organization, we always bring scripture into our conversation, and we always teach a biblical foundation. And one of those core principles is that we're called to love each other deeply, because as we love each other deeply, it says it will actually cover a multitude of sin, because we're not perfect. So at the core of trust and what we teach is relational capital. If you don't have strong relational capital with each other on your team, then there's nothing that's going to cover your mistakes. And if we love each other deeply and we have empathy and understanding towards each other, it helps us when we make those mistakes, have the grace that we need and the love that we need for each other in order to continue to stay that tight-knit ministry team that God has called us to be.
Well, speaking of ministry teams too, I'll go out on a limb here, Rodney, and say that especially with faith-based organizations, there's oftentimes an assumption of trust. There is, hey, we have similar values. You should trust me. And long-term, trust really has to be maintained. It has to be built upon, and you do that through actions, not just knowledge. I really liked your point earlier about a lot of teams, a lot of leaders build, their teams based on knowledge. They've gone to enough conferences, they've read enough books, they feel like they're ready. But really, leadership is very action-oriented, especially when it comes to building and maintaining trust. And it should be really what sets your team apart is a high level of trust, so that you can withstand stressful seasons, difficult problems, and celebrate those wins together at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. In post-pandemic or during the pandemic and post-pandemic, it's more and more difficult to actually take the time to build the relational capital that we need to build that trust. And so that's why we created the starter pack. This starter pack is really designed to be able to take the core principles of leading from your strength from the boardroom all the way down to the basement. We've never created a package like that before. People have been crying out for it, and they've been really crying out for it post-pandemic. So the starter pack we created in order to solve for that solution and solve that problem. Another thing that people were asking us, can it be turnkey? Like, can you build a facilitator's guide and a, participants workbook that basically will hold our hand through the whole process? Can we leverage technology in order to, deliver the content in a high impact and a high quality way? And that's at the core of what we built with the Strong Team Starter Pack.
I think that I know I've been hearing about this for a long time, especially from younger leaders, Rodney, that have been, there's no shortage of information out there. As I said earlier, there's, digitally, we're so connected now that you can read, 5 books a month now. You can listen to podcasts. You can follow your favorite leader online. And so a lot of young leaders are kind of waking up, at least the ones that have talked to me and said, I've got a lot of knowledge. I've got a lot of sound bites. But when Monday rolls around, I don't feel like I'm equipped with how to step into the week or how to step into that season or that quarter and facilitate a stronger team. I'm good at sound bites. I'm good at handing out assignments. I'm good at heck. I treat people with respect, but I feel like that the team unity needs to be nurtured on a regular basis. But I'm not sure how to do that, and that's where a tool like the Strong Teams Starter Pack comes in.
Yeah, and during the pandemic, we released a new assessment called Quick Strengths. It utilizes our same core assessment, but it actually distills our 21-page report down into a one-page document. We are utilizing the quick strengths assessment in this process, in these 3 team meetings. That's kind of our promise with the Strong Team Starter Pack. If you give us 3 core interactions with your team, about 45 minutes each for those core interactions to 1 hour, we'll transform the team. We will build a close-knit ministry team with your help and with God's help. And so the Strong Team Starter Pack is on sale to the end of November. We want you to check it out. So we're discounting it for you. And we're also looking for your feedback. We want you to transfer the leading from your strengths principles anywhere inside the organization in a consistent way. So we hope you check that out. We'll put a link down in the description, and we'll also be sending out some emails and things of that nature on it. Or you can go to ministryinsights.com and you can just search Starter Pack and you'll find it no problem. So go look at it, give us your feedback, and we hope that you build a strong team with it from the boardroom all the way down to the basement of your organization. And until we meet again, God bless.